Are you coming to say hello to me?
Right. Otherwise, I'm shy.
Thank you so much to everybody who came out, especially on such short notice. It's incredible to see the enthusiasm and how much everybody cares about this issue here. This is my wife, Lydia, my daughter, Charlotte. Born in Sharon Hospital in 2017. And Lydia first got me involved in this issue when she was shocked and appalled at what short notice HealthQuest was giving when they were winding down such a critical service. They gave the community just 28 days notice and then even said publicly that they had hoped that those stories wouldn't go out when they did, so it would have been even less notice for the community. And that really struck a chord with us because not only is the maternity ward an important service for this community, an important piece of healthcare for us, but the entire hospital. What does it portend for the entire hospital if they take a service as important as a maternity ward and close it so quickly? And so before we dig in, I just want to lay out a few facts that we found as we've looked into this. When HealthQuest acquired the hospital in 2017, they availed themselves of $9 million in funds that ultimately belong to the people of this community and the Foundation for Community Health. $3 million of that was towards the purchase price of the hospital, which was just $5 million. And then an additional $6 million was to be paid out over 4 years for operating expenses within the hospital. When they purchased a hospital, they said it wasn't their intention to close down any critical services for 3 years. And within 1 year, they appeared to have broken that promise. And again, on such short notice. In addition to just the health risk this poses, this is an important provider of jobs for our community. And then I'd also ask, what does having a community hospital mean? Especially one that accepts funds that are for the public interest or dedicated towards the public interest. Is it a business that should run every single line or offering that they have solely for profit? Or is it something that should say the entire operation makes sense and we can afford to provide this for the community, we're cash flow positive at the end of the year, and we don't need to squeeze out every single last dollar on every single last service that we provide to our residents? And so where are we today? Well, one, our voices are being heard. We hear that reflected in HealthQuest's statement. We see our political leaders stepping up, which is incredibly encouraging. And we see a lot of our political leaders being very early to this issue, which is really gratifying to see you guys come out to this. On Sunday, last Sunday, I was at a Democrat, my words are failing me, but I was at a rally for the two Democratic candidates for the 5th District in Connecticut. And the Democratic candidate for the Attorney General spoke. Every single question that he got after he finished his speech was about the Sharon Hospital. And so that shows what a chord that this has struck in the community, and you're all being here really also supports that. And so what are the next steps? Well, one, we've gathered together here. We're signing letters. We're sending them to the appropriate agencies of the state. Our political leaders are engaged. But in terms of very next steps, we're looking to have a public hearing with the Northwest Council of Governments. One thing that HealthQuest has done a very poor job at is engaging the local community, allowing our voices to be heard, a give and take and productive problem solving rather than top-down closures that leave a lot of residents in our community out in the cold. And we hope to begin having that dialogue. In addition, they're seeking to merge with Western Connecticut Hospital System, which would put 7 to 8 hospitals under the control of the new organization that they found, which would further imperil our hospital in that a closure in Sharon would only yield more and more patients going into their other hospitals, and so the alignment of interest simply isn't there. And so we're seeking a hearing from the OHCA, who has whom that application goes through. They should hear firsthand from this community what this hospital means, how HealthQuest has acted with the Sharon Hospital maternity ward, and why they should look very, very carefully at any application that gives this group rights over more health care or more control over health care in this state and in this community, including New York State. All of your signatures here really do mean something. We're writing to the Attorney General, the Office of Healthcare Access, and the Office of Health Management. These are all bodies that have the ability to regulate and rein in a group that's not acting well within our community. And more is more in this sense. The more signatures we collect, the more people that step up and say that this is not okay, that we deserve the rights to these critical health services, the better off we'll be. So on that note, there are 3 letters over there. If you haven't signed them, please do stop by each table. Our wonderful volunteers can guide you as to what you're signing. It goes at each table, there's a box. Sign the letter, goes in the box. We'll be mailing those out on Monday, and we really appreciate that. But then I'll just close with this, because I want to turn it over to some people that have done and are looking to do a lot more for our community than Lydia and I do. This is not a short fight. We're in the very first inning, or the first half of the first inning for this. We're really just mustering concern and public awareness of this. And the rest of this, unfortunately, gets drawn out through public hearings, through interacting with our public officials, which we're already doing. But I would urge everyone standing here to remember today, when we look forward, that today is not going to solve the problem. But if we can keep up this kind of action and this kind of enthusiasm, we can actually do something about this. This is a strong community that we've seen come together over other issues. I think it was about 6 when they were going to put a pipeline right down through some land over on Route 41, and the community was able to come together and prevent that. And if we do that, if we can come together in the same way, we'll be able to protect critical health services for our community. So thanks very much for your time today. And let me introduce our next Our next speaker, Lara Hansen, a Kent resident who has an incredibly personal story that she'd like to share about what Sharon Hospital has done for her. Lara.
Thank you, Herbert, Lydia, for everything you've done to initiate this effort. So happy to be here to speak and stand with you guys, and we'll continue to be here with you. Laura Hansen Barrett, resident of Kent. This is my son, John Aloysius Barrett IV. Everyone also knows him as Moose. I probably won't be able to get him to stay up here, so I'm actually going to sit him down. But thank you so much to everyone who is here right now. So I am going to let him sit down. Maybe you can go play with Charlotte. So a few other thank yous I wanted to make as I open this. The nurses of Sharon Hospital, unfortunately a lot of them were not able to attend because they are currently staffed by HealthQuest, and I know didn't feel comfortable, but they are amazing nurses, wonderful, wonderful people, and I really wanted to thank them, even though I know a bunch are not here. I wanted to thank Brian and all the other politicians that have gotten behind this. I mean, for it to happen over a 4th of July week and for people to rally is just amazing. And so thank you very much. I also wanted to thank HealthQuest. I don't know if any of you are here, but thank you for listening to us. You are important for our community, and we want to work with you to make sure that our community keeps growing. So if there is anyone here, thank you, and thank you for listening and hearing our call. So I'm going to tell you 2 quick stories. I'm really not going to try and keep it long, but 2 stories. So my husband is somewhere here. I don't see him. But he grew up in Warren and introduced me to this community about 4 years ago when we first started dating. I'm a California native, lived in New York for 15 years, had never heard of this part of the world, and I thank my lucky stars every night that he introduced me to this part of Connecticut, because it is really such a gem. My father's from Minnesota, my mom's from Colorado, I had grandparents in Texas and Boston. I played college basketball, and I've seen a lot of this country, and I love this country. But we live in a very, very special place. So I'll let the truck go by. So 2 years ago, I don't know if any of you have been to Angevine Farm. We were married there, and then a month later, found out we were expecting our son, and we were so lucky, but we were living in a shoebox in New York City, and we really wanted to move close to my mother-in-law, Becky Barrett, who is my son John's best friend, and And so we started looking at the neighborhoods around here, fell in love with Kent, and a month later put an offer in, they accepted, and I realized I had to get a car. I got up here and my phone wasn't working. I didn't know where I was going, and there were these things called tics, and it became a little alarming. But I have to say, giving birth to my son, you know, unless you're a mother, you can't appreciate it, but it is such a gift. Children are just, if you're not a mom, like, not that dads don't understand, but it is just, it's a game changer. It's such a gift, and I have been gifted to also make friends with other mothers. I live in Kent. We have a group that goes to Kent Library almost every week on Tuesday. And a lot of them are in my same boat. We all moved here from New York City, in part because of Sharon Hospital. We were crazy young dreamers that wanted to start a family. Who this day and age like dreams to start a family? Well, we do. And we wanted to move to a community that we believed in. And so there's a bunch of us, the elders in the community. You may not know who we are, but we're here. We love this community. We moved here for a reason. We want to continue to grow our families. And so even though you may not see all their faces in the crowd today, we're here, and we're going to continue to advocate or do whatever we need to do. So the second story. So we move here. My son is born. I'm a new mom in a new community. But I have these friends at the Kent Library who are just awesome. Then my world expands. I played college basketball. I went to Fordham University, if anyone's heard of that little school in New York City. Hi, Lincoln. How are you? And so I was fortunate enough in the Kent community, I started coaching the Kent Center boys basketball team. Absolutely loved it. Then I also started coaching the Kent School girls team. Absolutely loved it. Then a week before Christmas, right as basketball was winding down, 5 a.m., I woke up, I thought I was having a heart attack. I didn't see my husband, I didn't know what was going on. He heard me, he happened to be in the next room, and normally he's traveling. And I just thank God he was home. So he finds me 5 a.m. I'm completely out, no idea what is going on. I wake up in the Sharon Hospital, 6 a.m. because I looked at the clock. I don't know what they'd done to waken me up from being in shock. But they said, please sign this paperwork. We have to perform life or death surgery. I was like, oh, okay, great. I guess I'll sign this. Signed it, went back out. About half a day later, I woke up in the ECU or ICU with amazing nurses that took care of me and nursed me back to health. And thank God I survived, because the only thing that keeps resonating is, you know, I can't imagine my son growing up without a mom, or my husband being a single father. And so the fact that now we're faced with a situation where a vital service, something that to me is so important to a community, it's the bloodline, children. I mean, that's what fosters a community, is our children. They're going to go to school together, they play together, they go to each other's birthdays. Yeah, so obviously for us, this is super important. We want to be here to support Sharon Hospital. On a more realistic note, I looked up where the other hospitals are that they want us to go to. So Great Barrington is an hour from my house. Poughkeepsie is about an hour and 10 minutes from my house. Danbury is an hour from my house. And New Milford is a close 40 minutes. I got in touch with the EMT that saved my life and brought me to the hospital. He said he was pretty sure I wouldn't have survived if I had to go anywhere else. The doctor said I was very lucky, probably wouldn't have survived a lot of circumstances. I think they both called it circling the drain. So I'm very happy to report I'm not circling the drain anymore. I've been cleared to help expand our family, and I really would love to do that at Sharon Hospital. And so to conclude, I just wanted to thank a few more people. I don't know if anyone here from Kent EMT, but they are just such a fabulous group. Thank you so much for everything you do for us. To the community who embraced me as an outsider and continues to letting me feel like I'm a part of this community and own it and coach and get to work with kids. I'm so fortunate. I, again, feel so blessed to have found this community. And then to my husband for being so very patient and being there to save my life that night. Thank you, and I love you very much. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Lara. Next, I want to invite up Rachel McCaffrey from Tuberville to say a couple words about her experience with Sharon Hospital. Rachel.
Hi, I'm Rachel, and I've lived in Millerton most of my life. And I just wanted to share the story of my recent delivery at Sharon Hospital. On June 13th, I had my second son at Sharon Hospital. I was 34 weeks pregnant, and this was due to an emergency situation. Because my pregnancies are high risk, I was supposed to deliver at Vassar in Poughkeepsie, which is an hour away from my house. On June 12th, On June 12th, around 11:30 p.m., I woke up and began bleeding extremely heavily. My husband was out of town for work, and I was home with my 2-year-old. I called my OB, who told me to get to the nearest hospital immediately, which was Sharon Hospital. I got my 2-year-old up and drove to Sharon, which is about a 10-minute drive from my home. I went through the ER and was quickly moved to the maternity unit once a friend picked up my 2-year-old. I continued to bleed heavily throughout this. Once I got to the maternity unit, I met Dr. DeVury for the first time. I was told that I had had a placenta abruption and my baby's heart rate was irregular. I needed to have a C-section immediately. I was taken to the OR where Dr. DeVury and Dr. Jaffe performed an emergency C-section, saving my life and my baby's life. My son was born at 1:13 a.m., just around an hour after I arrived at the hospital. Had it not been for the OB staff and doctors at Sharon Hospital, I do not believe I would be home currently with my baby. In my case, time was critical, and I would not have made it to another hospital. It frightens me to think about what would have happened if the maternity services at Sharon Hospital were not available to me. Things would have went very badly, and I don't believe my son and I would have survived. My hope is that Sharon Hospital will continue to provide maternity services not only for routine deliveries, but also so that if another mother was in a similar situation as mine, they would have a hospital close that can deal with emergency deliveries. Thank you.
Next, I want to invite up Brian Oler, our state representative from the 64th District.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming out on such a beautiful Saturday. It's nice to see an amazing turnout, given the circumstances that have played out over the last 2 weeks. And thank you to Lydia and Herbert for organizing this event and clearly putting some capital behind all the furnishings, the t-shirts, the signs, and proving to everybody, can everyone hear me? That this truly is a grassroots effort. And my purpose here today is to offer you a timeline of how we got from September 2016 to today, and how on behalf of HealthQuest there has been a clear effort to leave the public out of this conversation. For right, wrong, or indifferent, it's ultimately what has happened. And I just want to explain, in 2016, September of 2016, HealthQuest filed a CON with the state of Connecticut, with the Office of Healthcare Access, to purchase the hospital. And they first are quick to list their core values that they stand by: respect, excellence, accountability, compassion, and honor. The last two in particular, compassion, having empathy for the people who live in this community and for the patients who would ultimately be served by the hospital. Honor, they say integrity is everything. What's played out in the last year, I believe, has been anything but filled with compassion or integrity. Within that CON of 2016, their goal is to say recruitment of physicians under Essent, who was their prior owner of Sharon Hospital, has been very difficult. However, under HealthQuest, an increased availability of physicians, upwards of 300, are available in order to promote equitable access and health care. Interesting. On page 36 of this 1,750-page document, we are not proposing any changes or eliminations of services. In fact, they intend to add cardiologists, OBs, and surgeons. Interesting. This is what they say they want to do. Page 38, it is most cost-effective to treat everything locally. Okay, then why are we getting rid of the maternity unit? Now, on May 15th of this year, just behind you in the town hall on the second floor, HealthQuest, their board of trustees, President Peter Cordeaux, invited all of the elected officials from the area, stakeholders, interested parties, to talk about the state of the hospital. They were quick to gloat about all of the amazing things that the Sharon Hospital had to offer and the future of the hospital. At no time did anyone mention that there was an issue with the maternity ward or that the demographics were declining to justify the closing of the entire ward. You would think that would be a time to bring up that discussion. That was May 15th. On June 6th, okay, a mere weeks after that meeting, they now file, HealthQuest files another CON to merge with the Western Connecticut Health Network. They basically want to take over all of the healthcare services along the Route 7 corridor. Now, of that 1,750-page document, there are, question 25, they talk about maternity. They said, due to the decline of women of childbearing age and low deliveries, it's difficult in retaining qualified physicians, and they were actively evaluating the overall viability of the ward. So when they say that they're actively evaluating, that would have been a time, or I would say May 15th was a time, to let us know as elected officials, community stakeholders, the board of trustees, that they are thinking of closing. So June 6th, they filed the CON. On June 30th, they have official exit interviews with the nurses of the maternity ward. So June 6th, say they actively investigating. June 30th, they have exit interviews, right before the July 4th holiday. Folks, you do not have exit interviews with your employees unless you have already determined that you're going to close the ward. Again, with zero public input and zero input from the local board. Referring back to that 2016 CON, the Office of Healthcare Access puts forward some conditions to HealthQuest in order to approve their purchase. On page 1748 of 1750, yes, it gets quite monotonous. Office of Healthcare Access references section 2.7.1. Conditional on this agreement, HealthQuest is to appoint a 12-member board that will exist up to 3 years minimum after the closing date. These 12 members of the board shall have all voting rights and privileges and obligations thereof. OCA is imposing this to ensure continued access to quality health care. So July 2nd, that Sunday, is when I went public on social media after Peter Cordeaux had confirmed that they are in fact closing the ward, which created the ripple effect across the community because they had no intention of letting the public know in a timely manner. So I went public with it. 6:30 that Monday morning, I'm in Peter Cordeau's office with Christina McCulloch, the chief nursing officer, and they're confirming to me that, in fact, they met with each board member individually to explain to them the gravity of the situation with the loss of OB docs, how they can't cover scheduling, and that with the nod of a head, each board member agreed. There was no official meeting, there was no vote taken, and I think according to this condition in their original CON, they did not honor that obligation. So what we're doing going forward and how this grassroots effort all began, we need to keep the pressure on. As the last 2 weeks unfolded, and you'll notice a lot of employees, or there aren't any employees here, is because their job is threatened. A lot of those nurses in the maternity ward are seeking employment elsewhere because there is, in fact, a toxic and discriminatory work environment that is going on within the hospital. So while we stand here today unified, our collective voices to save the hospital, to save the ward, we must keep in our best interest the lives and the quality of life of the nurses, the entire staff of the ward, and the OB docs, Dr. Jaffe, Dr. Dorvuri, Dr. Mortman, Dr. Sussman. They have been our best friends during some of the most emotional times of our wives, our girlfriends, our loved ones, for women's health in general. They have been pillars of this community for the last 20, 30 years. And I'm sorry, the Northwest Corner is unique in a lot of different ways. But one way in particular is that we do not let our voices be silenced or muted or unheard. So while Peter Cordeau is a figure of the community, a resident of this area, HealthQuest is not. If they don't want to honor their 2016 obligation, if they don't want to uphold the conditions that were mandated to them, then we're going to go to the hospital and say, give our hospital back. Let us as a community run it. If you don't want to be partners in our overall healthcare system, if you don't want to be partners in our community, if you want to forego any type of transparency, then give us the keys. Let us run it as we want to run it. So thank you for being here today. Don't give up the pressure. This grassroots effort is just the beginning, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart for continuing the outcry.
Bravo.
Thanks very much, Brian. Next up, I'd like to invite Jessica Fowler, our second selectman, right here in Sharon. Test. That sounds pretty good.
If Ed Kirby was here, he hates, where's Dale? He hates second and third selectmen, doesn't he? Yes, I know. That's my other selectman right there, Dale Jones. Yes, give it up for Dale. I can't say the PISSED word because there's children here, but trust me, I am so angry. I feel like this is the second, third, fourth time I've gone public defending this hospital in a variety of ways. And I'm going to speed through this as fast as I can because you've got a bunch of other great speakers that are going to be here. But I am so glad that you all are here. And before I start, I want to just give it up for the Moores. Give it up. Exactly. They've done a stellar job organizing quickly, on the fly, incorporating a bunch of different people. I'm so impressed. As a lifelong resident of this region, a 25-year resident of Sharon, and as a selectman since 2013, I have watched and rooted for our hospital. I've participated on panels, testified at public hearings, been part of advisory groups, all with the intent to enhance or save healthcare services in this northwestern part of Connecticut. I've had both of my kids here, visited the ER several times, and have been very happy to be able to have routine services performed so close to my home. I supported the return to a nonprofit status last year, as it seemed to me the relationship with HealthQuest was necessary to keep the hospital from disappearing altogether due to its inability to form the kinds of partnerships necessary to ensure vital services would continue to be offered. With the HealthQuest acquisition, Sharon residents would have an opportunity to stay within a local network, and the community would retain the jobs, as well as have our local businesses benefit. The leadership of the Foundation of Community Health had felt confident enough at that time in HealthQuest to provide funding for the sale. All signs to me pointed to a win, or at least a higher score in this game of maintaining healthcare access in a rural community. And that game changed so quickly last week with the announcement of maternity closing. There was a date provided, as Brian said, and then retracted. There was no solid and comprehensive statement from HealthQuest to the community about the date for closure, nor time enough provided to roll out the new scenario for how prenatal services, labor, delivery would look for expectant mothers. Without timely information given, there's only been room left for speculation and rumors, which have definitely run their course over the last few days. There are accusations swirling about noncompliance with the CON and of promises broken for the community. Democratic candidate for the state of Connecticut House District, Maria Horn, a former attorney with the U.S. Attorney's Office, has asked the Connecticut Attorney General to investigate. And this is the right thing to do to ensure that the CON has not been violated. And I thank her for taking that stance. As an elected leader, I was told nothing about this. Nothing. N-O-T-H-I-N-G. I wasn't given the opportunity to learn about this decision or about any new service delivery plans. This is disheartening. It gives the appearance of little thought to the effect of this news or insight as to how important this service is to area women and their families. We are a region struggling to attract families and promote community and economic development. There are initiatives being promoted, from a regional fiber optic network to a marketing platform for all the towns. Local leaders are supporting and working together on all of these projects because we realize how important it is that we work and act now. Not being informed on a change in how critical services will be delivered only adds to our uncertainty and excludes those of us already working on ways to keep our towns healthy and vibrant. Healthcare services account for about 60% of the jobs in Sharon. 60%. Most of those jobs within the healthcare sector come from the hospital. If maternity is going to go, what's next? Who will I run into in this town or a neighboring one who tells me they don't have a job anymore because of a service merger? Rural areas are already at risk, and yet our area is such an incredible asset to this state. Unlike the rest of Connecticut, we are financially sound, as are many of the towns around me, and we are working hard to take care of our residents and keep them here. To keep our residents here, it's simple. We need to maintain critical healthcare delivery systems. I am very happy to see you all here today to show your support. Let's pledge to do all we can to work for a local hospital that works for us. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Jessica. I want to ask everybody, if you haven't already, please do take the time to visit the tables over here. There are 3 different tables, 3 different government bodies that we're reaching out to, and your signature really does mean a lot and help to draw attention to this. Next, I want to welcome Brent Coley, our first selectman here in Sharon. Brent.
Thank you, and thank you all for coming here today and representing our community. We have people of all ages. I think that's important. And as you can see, there are kids here in Sharon. There's a lot more kids here than one would think. And as a focus, as a town, that's what we want to keep improving. Now, to lose this type of service is going to cause major problems for that effort. And as Jessica pointed out, as a Board of Selectmen, we were not made aware of any of these changes. We weren't aware that any of this was coming down the pipe. It was a surprise when literally friends and neighbors were coming to us and saying, I'm losing my job. And we didn't know why. And based on what we had been hearing throughout the whole process of this change, we've been trying to save this hospital for more than just the last couple days. I mean, this has been a long process for a lot of different reasons. But, in looking at what transpired, as Brian pointed out, it just doesn't add up. I mean, if you look at their certificate of need, they're telling us all these different stories, but none of them make any sense. At the end of the day, we are gaining families here. And I work in town hall. We have beach stickers and transfer station passes, and we see a lot of families coming in for those, and we know that you guys are here. And to be told that we're going to lose almost 5% of young mothers in the next 10 years, that's not true. We're going to gain them because we live in a beautiful place. Sharon, let's face it, as Dale has said many times, we live in a park. People who come here to visit want to stay, and for good reason. And so what we're trying to do as your town leadership is we're working not only with just each other, but other people from all over the region to prevent this, because it's important. I mean, we added to the daycare center so more kids can go there. That's important. We've added basketball courts down at the Veterans Field, down at the beach. We're improving basketball courts up here. We're looking to add playgrounds. I mean, that is really the theme, is to make this more friendly for the young people. And if this is to continue and actually take place, that all goes away. So your involvement here, your voice, I mean, it's all important to helping us help you. And to Herbert and Lydia, I mean, thank you so much for taking ownership and making this happen. It's really been a pleasure working with you both. Getting to the facts, because the facts are, from what I can tell, we need new doctors. I mean, that's the bottom line. We serve more towns than any other hospital within this group. Danbury, Norwalk, Sharon. If you look at the numbers that they posted just last month, you know, all of us, maternity is about 11% of the services in total. So it's not like we're low. And, you know, the lowest one up happens to be Norwalk Hospital. Now, if they close Norwalk Hospital, they'd just go to Stanford, and that's not far away at all. But what's not being considered is that we need to recruit new doctors and make them aware that new families are here, because we may have a border between Amenia and Sharon, but we don't have a wall. You know, people come and go all the time, and we are seeing big development in Amenia, and that's important to us because we all are in this together. If we lose this hospital in this location, we lose more than anyone is really considering at HealthQuest. So again, thank you all for coming here and sharing your support.
Thanks very much, guys. Just we have two more very important speakers to go. Speaking of what Brent was saying about Sharon Hospital not just being Connecticut and Lakeville, or excuse me, Sharon and Lakeville in the state of Connecticut, I want to welcome Victoria Perotti, the Amenia supervisor, to say a few words. Victoria. I hope I said your last name right. It was okay. Okay.
I want to reiterate what you've already heard here, that the town of Amenia was not notified about any of the impending changes, even though there are a large percentage of New York State patients who come to Sharon Hospital. We were also left in the dark. I had 3 of my children at Sharon Hospital and 2 grandchildren. So I have a history with this hospital. What HealthQuest seems to have forgotten is that each of the hospitals in HealthQuest started as a community hospital: Vassar, Northern Dutchess, Putnam. And then everything became HealthQuest, which was corporate. And this is definitely a corporate move, not a community move. If they had stayed to their roots and actually kept all the hospitals as truly community hospitals, this would not be happening. This was a corporate decision based on the bottom line, without regard to their bread and butter, which are the patients, the staff, and the community. And we all feel that we have been disrespected, and we have been, and we need to be part of the future of Sharon Hospital We need to be communicated with, and because we want Sharon Hospital to prosper and to grow just as much as HealthQuest does. But Sharon Hospital is part of our lives, and HealthQuest needs to realize that and make us part of the solution going forward.
Thank you so much, Victoria. I just want to do one final plug, please. If you haven't already signed the petitions or the letters that we have over these tables, please do. I see a couple of people. John Posey. I don't know if I've seen you at the table signing letters yet. Oh, he has. All right, thanks very much. Next, I want to welcome Maria Horn, the Democratic candidate for the 64th District here in Connecticut. Maria.
Thanks, Herbert. I want to start out first just echoing something Herbert said a minute ago, which in this case, more is more. I think it's important to recognize today that actually more is also more. His family has been a huge part of this, not just Lydia and Herbert, but the extended Moore family, and I know you're all hard at work in front of the scenes and behind the scenes. I also just wanted to start with take a moment to why we're all here today. If I'm not mistaken, quite a few of us, including myself, it's not plan A for us personally to have more children. We're here because we care about the other people in our community. We care about our neighbors, our friends, the people who live here now, and the people we want to move here in the future. And we know that to have a community that is healthy and robust, we need to have a community hospital that offers full spectrum of services to its residents. So at first, thank you all for showing up today, and for, by the way, the full spectrum of all of us showing up here. It's important that we are all on the same page here. We have the same desire. I wanted to also focus on the fact that this is a rural healthcare. If you read the news, we all know that rural healthcare can be complicated and expensive if it's done well. And many of us who have been involved in any number of nonprofits in the community that have been involved in both social and health services over the years have been working on this issue for decades. There are many of you, I can see many of you in this audience. I have been on the Board of Women's Support Services, which periodically gets asked, why don't you merge with a bigger agency? Because it'd be cheaper to provide the services out of another bigger town. We don't do it because we don't want, as we've heard many people account today, we don't want a victim to have to wait an hour to see a counselor. We don't want them to have to drive 5 minutes to get to the hospital or to get to a counseling session. It matters to be able to provide these services right here in our rural communities. And I just want to note that we have a lot of resources in this community, in part because many of us have been engaged in this fight for so many years. We have a number of nonprofits who have been working on this issue. We also, let's talk about the Sharon Hospital Board itself, which includes a number of people who have significant healthcare experience and the capacity to help craft solutions going forward. So I want to focus, another resource that we do have available to us is the state. There's a reason why the state has oversight in a number of ways here, and that's because healthcare is a public good. One of those areas of oversight is with respect to charitable funds. The Attorney General's office always has jurisdiction over charitable funds, and because there were charitable funds invested in this hospital, they have jurisdiction to make sure that those charitable funds remain spent, both the ones that have been invested already and the ones that are committed in the future, for charitable purposes, for the specific charitable purposes for which they were intended. So that's one insight. And those conversations are already going on between the AG's office and these local nonprofits. So that's good. And that's partially started because of all of us. A second one that has also been alluded to before is the basic, because healthcare is important to all of us, changes in healthcare services have to be approved by the state. And in this case, we have a number of, when the original merger took place, as Brian went through a few minutes ago, the HealthQuest made various promises to the community. There's a certificate of need on file. It's 1,700 pages long. But they made certain commitments. Those need to be looked at. There's also, if HealthQuest intends to formally shut down the maternity ward, they have to file notice of that. They have to file a certificate of need. We can, through signing these letters and petitions that are out there on those tables, we can make sure that the Office of Health Strategy compels hearings. Because one of the things that's happened over the last few weeks is that has been really destabilizing is the chaotic release of information. It's no way to provide health care and reassure the residents of our community. So if we can all band together and make sure that hearings are held on that request to close the maternity ward, we can make sure that our questions get answered. And I'm going to suggest that in addition to signing all of the petitions that Herbert and Lydia have been talking about, that we all start to form a list of what those questions are, what we want HealthQuest to provide information on, what we perhaps need to do some research ourselves. And so I just spoke to Herbert earlier. I think maybe the best way for us to do that is if you have a question that you think HealthQuest ought to answer, you should perhaps email savesharonhospital@gmail.com. How about that? I think that would be a great way for us to collect the information that we need to make sure we get in order to put together not just a short-term solution which can prop the maternity ward open in the short run, but a longer-term solution that may very well involve all of us, all of our organizations, all of our nonprofits, all of our personal expertise, and the state's insistence. So thank you all for being here today, and for the organizers for all your incredible work, and let's do this together.
Thanks so much, Maria. In closing, I think we've all heard a lot of the same themes across everybody that spoke today. And really, primarily, what we need HealthQuest to do is keep the promises that they made to our community just 18 months ago when they acquired the hospital and availed themselves of so much community funds and resources here. We need them to keep those promises, to keep critical health services for us, for our families, and for our towns. Second, we need HealthQuest to work with our community, to hear us, to not try to sneak closures by us the day before 4th of July and hope that it goes unnoticed and hope that we can't organize, because we've shown them that we can organize. I also want to thank everybody today that spoke. We really appreciate your being here. Many of you only found out about this 5 or 6 days ago, and the fact that you were able to mobilize so quickly and come with such cohesive and important remarks really speaks volumes to how well you speak in public, but also to how important this is to you. So thank you very much for that. Second, I want to thank all of our volunteers for all that you've done over the past few days. We really appreciate the gratitude that was coming towards me and my wife Lydia here, but there were so many other people that had a part in putting this day on, from setting up chairs to making signs. I can't thank you guys enough. We wouldn't be here. We wouldn't have been able to have this without you. And then finally, I want to thank, one more group before that I want to thank is the press for being here today. You're incredibly important for our community. We're a small community, but to have you here and to have you publishing what's going on, people really do genuinely read this stuff, and it's important to express all the views and get to the facts. Finally, I want to thank all of you. Again, Maria echoed it, but more is more. The more pressure we put on, the more people that are behind this, the more we can protect these resources. All of you who shared things on Facebook just by clicking a button. We've had 20,000 people read posts that have been put on the Save Sharon Hospital page. That's incredible. It shows how much people are engaging with this and how important this issue is. Seems like a simple thing to tell a few of your friends, but with an issue this important, it really does make a difference. So thanks very much, everybody. Oh, sorry.
One last thing before you guys leave. If you were born in Sharon Hospital, or if you have a child here today that was born in Sharon Hospital, we would love to take a picture of you guys. So come on up here when we're done. And please sign our letters if you haven't done so already. And if you know people that want to sign the letters who weren't able to make it today, we're figuring out how to make this available electronically so that we can spread the word and get more people to sign. Thank you.
Bravo.